Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and also I want to greet the students at MIT. Today I'll apply the concepts introduced yesterday: fallibility, reflexivity, and the human uncertainty principle into the financial markets. Please brace yourselves, because I'll pack a lifetime of experience into this one lecture. The financial markets provide an excellent laboratory for testing the ideas that I put forward in an abstract form yesterday. The course of events is easier to observe than in most other places. Many of the facts take a quantitative form, and the data are well recorded and well preserved. The opportunity for testing occurs because my interpretation of financial markets directly contradicts the efficient market hypothesis, which has been the prevailing theory about financial markets. That theory claims that markets tend towards equilibrium. Deviations occur in a random fashion and can be attributed to extraneous shocks. If that theory is valid, mine is false, and vice versa. Let me state the two cardinal principles of my conceptual framework as it applies to the financial markets. First, market prices always distort the underlying fundamentals. The degree of distortions may vary from the negligible to the significant. This is in direct contradiction to the efficient market hypothesis, which maintains that market prices accurately reflect all the available information. Second, instead of playing a purely passive role in reflecting an underlying reality, financial markets also have an active role. They can affect the so-called fundamentals that they are supposed to reflect. There are various pathways by which the mispricing of financial assets can occur. The most widely traveled are those which involve the use of leverage, both debt and equity leveraging. The various feedback loops may give the impression that markets are often right, but the mechanism at work is very different from the one proposed by the prevailing paradigm. I claim that financial markets have ways of altering the fundamentals, and that may bring about a closer correspondence between market prices and the underlying fundamentals. Contrast that with the efficient market hypothesis, which claims that markets are always accurately reflecting reality and automatically tend towards equilibrium. My two propositions focus attention on the reflexive feedback loops that characterize financial markets. There are two kinds of feedback: negative and positive. Negative feedback is self-correcting. Positive feedback is self-reinforcing. Thus, negative feedback sets up a tendency towards equilibrium, while positive feedback produces dynamic disequilibrium. Positive feedback loops are more interesting because they can bring about big moves, both in market prices and in the underlying fundamentals. A positive feedback process that runs its full course is initially self-reinforcing, but eventually it is liable to reach a climax or reversal point, after which it becomes self-reinforcing in the opposite direction. But positive feedback processes don't necessarily run their full course. They may be aborted at any time by negative feedback. I have developed a theory about boom-bust processes or bubbles along these lines. Every bubble has two components: an underlying trend that prevails in reality and a misconception relating to that trend. A boom-bust process is set in motion when a trend and a misconception positively reinforce each other. The process is liable to be tested by negative feedback along the way. If the trend is strong enough to survive the test, both the trend and the misconception will be further reinforced. Eventually, market expectations become so far removed from reality that people are forced to recognize that a misconception is involved. A twilight period ensues, during which doubts grow and more people lose faith, but the prevailing trend is sustained by inertia. As Chuck Prince, a former head of Citigroup, said, we must continue dancing until the music stops. Eventually, a point is reached when the trend is reversed. It then becomes self-reinforcing in the opposite direction. Let me go back to the example I used when I originally proposed my theory in 1987, the conglomerate boom of the late 1960s. The underlying trend is represented by earnings per share, the expectations relating to that trend by stock prices. So here you have the earnings per share and the stock price.